The James Harden situation in Philadelphia continues to get weirder and weirder. He opted in and requested a trade, which in the first place was very strange. He's cost himself a ton of money over the last couple of seasons, going back to when Houston offered him a lot to stay and he decided to request a trade. Brooklyn offered him a lot to stay. He decided to request a trade. Then he takes the pay cut with Philadelphia. Then he opts into a deal this year when he probably could have gotten more over the long term in free agency. He's cost himself a ton of money. And now, not only is he requested a trade, but it doesn't seem like that trade interest is really out there. And Philadelphia's situation specifically makes this an unbelievably difficult task for them to try and figure out what the right move is for them in terms of trading away James Harden. And that makes me think, do the Sixers have to trade James Harden at all? Let's just put yourself in the mindset of Daryl Morey. You have an unbelievable MVP caliber player in Joel Embiid. You have a team that looks like at certain points it could have competed for an NBA title last year. And for the second time in 3 years or the second time in 2 years, you have your second best player on the roster, the first time being Ben Simmons, this time being James Harden, refusing to play for the franchise. And you have an MVP that's over there wondering, why do things always have to change? Why is there always some big offseason thing? Why is it that we're going to go into the season again and our main guy is just not going to be out there? Or the other main guy apart from him is just not going to be out there. It's not going to be an option. And I'm going to have to run around and try and carry this team to 50 games again, just like he did with Ben Simmons. And if you're Daryl Morey, your biggest fear out of all this is not getting a bad trade package for James Harden. It's not missing the finals next year. It's losing Joel Embiid. That's the biggest fear if you are Daryl Morey. And you look at this situation and you think, there's something we could do here maybe where we could turn Harden, Harris, and Maxey into like stuff from the Clippers, a couple of wings, Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, whatever the case may be, and Damian Lillard. And we put that group together around Joel Embiid and it's very good. But that's the best possible outcome here. And to give up all those guys in exchange for that doesn't necessarily make your basketball team any better. And that makes me wonder, Daryl Morey, who is, for all reports, an incredibly tough negotiator. I mean, he was going to ask for the moon in exchange for Tyrese Maxey and James Harden. Why doesn't he just go to James and say, you know what, I understand that you were upset that you didn't get as much as you wanted in a contract offer. It's unfortunate that that's how it worked out, but we can't find a good trade for you. I'm not going to trade you for Norman Powell and a first. I'm just not going to do that. So your options are, one, you can play for a basketball team this year in Philadelphia, or you can sit at home and maybe we'll try and do something at the trade deadline. Why can't he just go to him and say those exact words? This is where we're at. It's just not feasible. It's not realistic right now for us to trade you if I'm trying to actually improve the franchise and the team of the Philadelphia 76ers. Like, apart from that Lillard scenario that I outlined earlier and have talked about in previous videos, or if for some reason the Clippers randomly want to do Paul George for James Harden, which I don't think they do, there's no James Harden trade out there that makes the Sixers better, and arguably there's no James Harden trade out there that is even a lateral move for them. And no matter what you think of Tyrese Maxey, do you really think, even the most optimistic Maxey fans and Sixers fans, do you think that guy is ready to be the main perimeter player in a postseason series? And you're so confident in that you're willing to put the future of your franchise, the future of Joel Embiid's interest in maintaining his status as a Philadelphia 76er, you're willing to risk all of that on the idea that Tyrese Maxey can be a big-time perimeter player in a postseason series and really elevate your team the way that you're hoping that a star player on the perimeter can outside, around Joel Embiid. If you're willing to risk all of that by trading away James Harden to the Clippers for a couple of wings, you are much braver than I am. And I love Tyrese Maxey. I think he's going to be awesome. I think he's a really valuable asset for them should they choose to trade him. But that's just, for me personally, too big of a risk to risk the idea of Joel Embiid saying in a year, I don't want to be here anymore because we just won 48 games with Tyrese Maxey, Norman Powell, and myself, and I've been trying to carry this team for years, and there's been dysfunction for years, and I just can't take it anymore. That scenario would absolutely terrify me if I was the Sixers, if I was Daryl Morey, and I personally just wouldn't be able to risk that. And so until the offers for James Harden improve, if they ever improve, and or you can get Lillard to replace the star power of James Harden and maybe send him to the Clippers for some other stuff, until that scenario develops, I personally would not trade James Harden, and I don't expect Daryl Morey to either. I don't think that, especially at this time of the year, maybe as we get closer to the season when there's more pressure to make the deal, he will do the Clippers thing or the Lillard thing, whatever the case may be. But right now, what's the incentive for Daryl Morey to send James Harden to the Clippers for a couple of wings and hope that Tyrese Maxey develops into a number one perimeter guy? Like, there's no reason to do that right now, and I really don't expect him to. And again, I ask the question, why do they have to? Because they also could go to him and say, you know what? We're not going to do the trade. It doesn't make sense. And he can say, okay, you know what? I want to make a lot of money next summer. I'll go ahead and play for y'all and we'll figure it out. Like, it's not impossible because we've seen it happen. Last offseason, Kevin Durant wanted them to fire the coach, wanted them to fire the members of the front office. He didn't want to be there anymore. He said he wasn't going to play. He was going to request a trade, send me to this team, send me to that team. Then they had a meeting. They figured it out, and Brooklyn was awesome all the way up until KD got hurt again. Kyrie requested a trade, and the rest is history. But we've seen this before. And I think the KD situation was much more hostile than whatever's happening with Harden. I don't think Harden has an issue with the organization as a whole. I don't think he has an issue with the coach or the front office. I think he has an issue with how the contract negotiations went. And he lost out on so much money over the last couple of seasons, and he wants that big contract, and it just wasn't there. And he got frustrated. So he opted in. He thought he could end up with the Clippers, and then he'll get his big deal with them next year because they're going to be terrified that he's going to leave. I don't think that this is a situation that is impossible for Philadelphia to reconcile. And I would argue that the best thing that they could do would be to just wait it out, see if the offers develop into something better, see if there's a landscape out there that allows you to add a star for James Harden or Tyrese Maxey. And if not, just see if James Harden's going to play basketball or not. And the biggest issue with all of this is Harden's place on the team as the main perimeter creator. You can say what you want about James Harden at this point in his career. He's not fantastic. He's not all NBA level, but he's still really, really good. And Philadelphia, unless you think Tyrese Maxey is that guy, doesn't have a viable replacement for him. And obviously, based off the rumors that we're getting, that star replacement doesn't exist out there either. Typically, when guys like Harden request a trade, it's because the team wants to tear things down and they want to get future assets, and it's easier to find a team that is willing to take on someone like Harden in exchange for some future stuff. But if you're going to be trading, Paul George or another star in exchange for James Harden, Philadelphia is just not going to be happy, at least as of this moment, with the star that they're going to be getting in return. So why not just wait it out? Now, the major counter to that, of course, would be Harden's history of just tanking his value and torpedoing the season of an entire team like he did in Houston, like he did in Brooklyn. This guy knows exactly how to do this. He'll show up out of shape. He'll act like he's hurt. He'll barely give any effort. And then all of a sudden you're in an awful situation, even worse situation than you are now if you're Daryl Morey, because everybody knows at that point that Harden is not an asset, even less of an asset than he is right now. And so overall, it's a really difficult situation for Philly. I'm not trying to act like there is an easy solution, but I am here to argue the point that maybe door number 3 is an option. Door number 1 being trade James Harden to the Clippers. Door number 2 being just wait it out, and if he doesn't play, he doesn't play. Door number 3 is, hey, let's figure it out. Let's play it out for the season. I think that's a much more realistic possibility at this point than even trying to trade James Harden overall is.